Hello, this is another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm starting a new author series with this video, exploring everything I can get my hands on by Ray Bradbury. I don't think Ray Bradbury really needs any introduction, but a few little facts about him. He was born not too far from where I was born, but in a different state. He was born in Waukegan, Illinois, which is only a 2-hour bicycle ride from my hometown of Racine, Wisconsin. There's a bike trail that goes between Racine and Waukegan. I used to ride that all the time. Anyway, he was born there, but he moved out to California and spent most of his career life in California. Born August 22nd of 1920, and he died on June 5th of 2012. So he's only been gone for a little more than 10 years now. And Bradbury is best known for books like The Martian Chronicles, Something Wicked This Way Comes, The Illustrated Man. Martian Chronicles and The Illustrated Man are actually short story collections, but Bradbury kind of weaves the stories together with a filler narrative to make them into kind of a novel, and both have been filmed. Something Wicked This Way Comes has been filmed. Of course, Bradbury is well known for his screenplays, most notably Moby Dick, the Gregory Peck version that was made. He wrote the script for that and did a great job. In his early career, he wrote at least one story with Leigh Brackett and published that and quite a lot of his other stories in Planet Stories, of all places. So he started off in the most lurid of the pulp magazines, but his stories were a little different from most of what was in those magazines. His stories were definitely, even at the earliest, they were definitely more literate. They were definitely more crafted, carefully crafted, and that's how I typify all of his writing. It's very well crafted, well written writing that is a joy to read aloud because it sounds great. Just the words sound great. You don't even have to care what the story is. Just the words are great. But the stories are very imaginative too. And he did become one of the most respected American writers. He has a multi-volume set in the Library of America, which is a really, really great way to instantly build a Ray Bradbury library amongst your other books. I love the Library of America editions. They're really nice. I don't love the designs of the book jackets. They're a little boring, but I do love the authors and specific works that they choose to publish. And their books are well made. So that's a great way to instantly have most of Bradbury's important works, including short stories. But my goal here is to read everything I can get my hands on by Ray Bradbury. And Bradbury started out as a teenager writing for fanzines and even publishing his own fanzine. And his earliest writings, Bradbury himself has said, did not show any hope. He thought they were horrible, but I came across a statement of his in an interview that I found on YouTube, where he stated that he wanted to be a writer when he was a kid. And at that time, he had no reason to believe he could ever do anything worthwhile as a writer. He didn't exhibit any particular talent, but he had the desire to become a writer. And that was enough to make him try. And when he tried and failed, try again and keep trying until, he became one of the most celebrated writers in America, and definitely one of the top 4 science fiction writers on everybody's tongue. But his early stories are amateur teenage works. They are not professional stories. There isn't any one source for all that earliest work. They're kind of scattered around. One book that does have a lot of it is the one I have here. It's called The Earliest Bradbury. It's a very nice hardcover volume, and it's mostly nonfiction. It's mostly talking about Bradbury's early career and assembling things like letters and such that Bradbury had written. And if you saw that quick flash, you'll see that they are actual photographs of the original documents that are being displayed in this book. And so Bradbury's very first story, which is titled Hollerbochen's Dilemma. And by the way, it is a series. Hollerbochen's Dilemma is one of 2 stories about the character Hollerbochen. Hollerbochen's Dilemma being the first one. It was published in January of 1938 in a fanzine called Imagination. And these fanzines were just mimeographed, kind of like that Stephen King story I recently did, the 43rd Dream. That too was mimeographed. These early fanzines were just mimeographed copies. And the mimeograph machine is about yay big, and it just kind of makes transfer copies. And they're messy and smelly. I used to operate one when I was in junior high school. But it was a cheap, quick way to make multiple copies of a document. So these early science fiction fans like Ray Bradbury, they got a hold of these machines and they produced their fanzines on them. Now, they're just typed up in a typewriter. And so you have all the issues with a cheap typewriter of letters not being lined up very well, and some of them actually being off kilter, and a lot of weird things going on. And the stories that were published, stories like Hollerbochen's Dilemma, are really flash fiction. They're just 1 to 2 pages long, very short stories. Okay? So these are amateur efforts. They're flash fiction. We're not looking at major literature here. We're looking at down and dirty, somebody just getting his feet wet at a time when he knew nothing about writing. But as it is, considering all of that, the story has an interesting idea. The character Hollerbochen can see the future, and he sees his own death. He can see how he's going to die, and so he avoids it. But then that sets up a new timeline, which leads to another death, but he sees that and he avoids that, and keeps doing that through this story. These fanzines, I believe Imagination was actually edited by Forrest Ackerman of famous Monsters of Filmland fame. And Ackerman liked to mess with language. He's the guy that invented the term sci-fi, and people threw tomatoes at him for years after that. It was it was popular, but it wasn't popular. It became associated with all the worst of science fiction, and so it became a derogatory term. and that's why people didn't really like it. But he thought he was being clever because it was like hi-fi, high fidelity, sci-fi, sci-fidelity. No, science fiction. Anyway, Ackerman loved to change words within the fanzines that he did. And I saw letters in this book where some of the other fans were complaining about how Ackerman would always put these cutesy words in. So it's hard to say if the misspellings were done by Bradbury or if Ackerman went in and did that to it. But, there's all kinds of misspellings that were done intentionally to be cute. And it's just kind of dumb. I wouldn't recommend the story really to anybody but the Bradbury completist, the person who really wants to dig deep into Bradbury's history and his biography and learn everything about Bradbury. And if you're that person, I bought this new. I think it's print on demand, but you go on, there's a website for First Fandom Experience. That's who publishes this and who put it together and wrote it. And they have a website and they offer this for sale. It's not $5. It's a little pricier, but it is a cool book. It's got a great cover. It's got a lot of great information. It's very, very interesting to learn about the early history of Bradbury while starting this series and reading these stories. And so, as I said, there is a sequel to Hollerbochen's Dilemma called Hollerbochen Comes Back, or The Voyage of the Neuralgia. And that is Bradbury's second published story in November of 1938, 10 months later. And that will be my next Ray Bradbury video. I hope you'll come back and join me for that and learn a little bit about that story after I've read it. I've never read these early fanzine stories. I've read a lot of his other early works, but not the fanzine stuff. So this is kind of an interesting discovery for me. So with that, like this video, subscribe to our channel, come on back and see more of Bradbury and all the other authors. I've got a long list of different authors I'm going through. Every video I put up, it's a different author progressing one more story towards their last. And the one I'm furthest along with is Edgar Allan Poe. I forget exactly how far I am. I'm up in the 70s, I think. And I didn't do videos on all of them. Most of his early work was just the poetry, and most of his poetry, it's good, but I didn't want to do videos on it. But I've read all of them. Anyway, come on back for my next video. Whether you come back for the next Ray Bradbury or come back for whatever I put up, that would be great. I hope you'll be seeing me. I won't be seeing you because I can't see you through this. But I'll be here doing the video.